Grandpa Morris had always been particular about his routines. At 78, he'd earned that right, or so he told himself every morning as he shuffled through his Victorian home in his worn slippers, checking each room like a ship's captain inspecting his vessel. But lately, those routines had expanded to include something new, something he hadn't quite figured out how to mention to his family. The camera. It sat tucked in the corner of the guest bedroom, a small black lens no bigger than a shirt button, positioned on the bookshelf between his collection of Hemingway novels and an old clock that hadn't worked since 1987. Morris had installed it 3 months ago after a string of break-ins in the neighborhood left him feeling vulnerable, especially when his son David and daughter-in-law Rachel came to visit with their twin boys. Just for security, he'd muttered to himself while screwing it into place, his arthritic fingers fumbling with the tiny mounting bracket. Nothing wrong with protecting your own home. The problem was, Morris kept forgetting to tell people about it. Not out of malice or some sinister intent, his mind simply wasn't what it used to be. Appointments slipped away, names evaporated mid-sentence, and apparently, so did the intention to mention the security camera he'd installed in the room where his family slept when they visited. This particular Saturday morning, Morris sat at his kitchen table with a cup of black coffee growing cold between his weathered hands. His tablet, a gift from David last Christmas that he still barely knew how to use, sat open in front of him, showing the security app. He'd been trying to figure out how to delete old footage to free up storage space when he accidentally clicked on last night's recording. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. Morris squinted at the screen, about to close it, when he saw Rachel enter the frame. She was in her pajamas, the blue ones with white stars that she'd mentioned buying on sale at Target. He should have closed it then, should have respected her privacy and deleted the whole thing without a second thought. But he didn't. Because what he saw next made his coffee cup slip from his fingers, sending lukewarm liquid spreading across the oak table like a dark accusation. Rachel was crying. Not the soft, silent tears of someone trying to hold it together, but the kind of sobbing that shook her shoulders and made her double over, clutching her stomach as if physically wounded. She collapsed onto the edge of the bed, the same bed Morris's late wife Helen had picked out 30 years ago, and buried her face in her hands. Morris's thumb hovered over the pause button, his heart hammering against his ribs with the irregular rhythm that his cardiologist kept warning him about. He should stop watching. He knew he should, but something kept him frozen, unable to look away from his daughter-in-law's raw pain. Through the tablet's tinny speaker, he could hear her voice, muffled but clear enough. "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending everything's fine." Morris felt his chest tighten. The camera had picked up more than he'd ever intended. Rachel pulled out her phone, and Morris watched as she typed something, her fingers trembling. Then she made a call. The audio was fuzzy, but he could make out her words. "Mom, I know it's late. I needed to hear your voice." A pause. "No, David's asleep. The boys are asleep. It's just me." Another pause, longer this time. "I think I need to tell him the truth, about everything, about how I'm really feeling." Morris's mind raced. What truth? What was Rachel hiding? His son had seemed happy, the boys were thriving, their family looked perfect from the outside. But then again, Helen used to tell him he could watch a hurricane and only comment on the nice breeze. He watched as Rachel talked for another 20 minutes, her conversation with her mother becoming a lifeline in the dark. She spoke about feeling overwhelmed, about loving David and the boys, but losing herself in the process. About the dreams she'd deferred, the career she'd put on hold, the constant exhaustion of being everything to everyone while feeling like nothing to herself. "I'm not unhappy with them," she said, her voice cracking. "I'm unhappy with me, with who I've become or who I haven't become." Morris closed his eyes, shame washing over him like cold rain. He shouldn't be seeing this. This wasn't a break-in or a threat to his property. This was a woman's private moment of vulnerability, and he'd invaded it. But he'd also learned something crucial. The recording ended with Rachel wiping her eyes, splashing water on her face from the pitcher on the nightstand, and crawling into bed next to David, who never stirred. To anyone watching the next morning, to David, to the boys, to Morris himself, she would seem fine. That's what she'd been doing all along, seeming fine. Morris sat at that kitchen table for another hour, the spilled coffee drying into a sticky residue he'd have to scrub later. His mind kept circling back to Helen, to the year before she died, when she'd tried to tell him she felt invisible. He'd brushed it off, told her she was being silly, that of course he saw her. But he hadn't, not really, not the way she'd needed to be seen. And now history was threatening to repeat itself, one generation down. By the time David stumbled into the kitchen at 8 o'clock, looking for coffee and asking if Morris had any bagels, the old man had made his decision. "Son," Morris said, gesturing to the chair across from him, "sit down, we need to talk." David raised an eyebrow but complied, probably expecting another story about the old days or a complaint about the neighbor's dog. Instead, Morris took a deep breath and began with the hardest part. "I installed a security camera in the guest room. I forgot to tell you and Rachel, and that's on me. That's my mistake, and I'm sorry." David's expression shifted from confusion to concern. "Okay, Dad, that's a little weird, but I get it. The break-ins and all. Why are you bringing this up now?" Morris pushed the tablet across the table. "Because I accidentally saw something last night. Something I wasn't meant to see, and something you need to know about. Not because I was spying, but because sometimes the people we love are drowning right in front of us, and we're too busy looking at the horizon to notice." He didn't show David the recording. That would have been another violation, another betrayal of Rachel's privacy. Instead, he told him what he'd witnessed, carefully, gently, the way he wished someone had told him about Helen all those years ago. "Your wife is struggling, David, and she's been trying to tell you in her own way, but maybe the message isn't getting through, or maybe you're not in a place to hear it yet. But I'm telling you now, as someone who learned this lesson too late, listen to her, really listen. Before the silence between you becomes too loud to overcome." David sat very still, his coffee forgotten, his face a mixture of shock and dawning realization. I thought we were okay. I thought she was happy." "Maybe she is in some ways, maybe she isn't in others. That's something you two need to figure out together." Morris reached across and gripped his son's hand, his own fingers trembling slightly. "But you can't figure it out if you don't talk, really talk. Not about whose turn it is to take out the trash or what the boys need for school, but about the big things, the scary things, the things that hurt to say out loud." They sat like that for a long moment, two men separated by a generation, but connected by the universal challenge of truly seeing the people you love. Later that day, Morris watched from his kitchen window as David and Rachel took a walk together, leaving the boys with him. They were gone for over 2 hours. When they came back, Rachel's eyes were red but clearer somehow, and David's arm was around her shoulders in a way that suggested he was finally, truly holding on. Before they left that evening, Rachel hugged Morris at the door. "Thank you," she whispered. "David told me about the camera, about what you saw. I should be angry, but thank you." Morris shook his head. "I'm sorry I invaded your privacy. That camera's coming down tonight. I should have told you it was there." Rachel pulled back, meeting his eyes. Maybe some things need to be seen to be believed. Maybe this was supposed to happen this way. After they'd driven away, Morris did remove the camera, but he kept the mounting bracket, a small reminder of the lesson he'd relearned. Security isn't just about protecting your property from strangers. Sometimes it's about protecting the people you love from the distances that grow between you when you stop paying attention. That night, Morris called his daughter in Seattle, the one he hadn't really talked to in months. Not because they'd fought, but because they'd both gotten busy, comfortable with the silence. "Emma," he said when she answered, "It's Dad. I know it's late, but I wanted to hear your voice, and I wanted to ask you something important. How are you really doing?" In the pause that followed, Morris heard Helen's voice in his memory, reminding him that it's never too late to start seeing the people who matter most, not until it is. And sometimes, even our mistakes can teach us, and those we love, how to find our way back to each other.